Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and I'm excited to have Ryan Galiotto with Fields Financial Services just south of Pittsburgh on the show today. Ryan worked a few part-time jobs like bartending before finally breaking into the career of financial planning back in 2009. He started off on the administrative side of the firm while he got his licenses and was able to start running full speed after a year and starting to ramp up his book of business. I wanted to have Ryan on because he went through a really intense transition that a lot of advisors are thinking about. The transition from being an investment-centric firm to being a financial planning-centric firm. They've been in the process of transitioning firm from investments to financial planning for the last decade, really, which was largely driven by the needs of clients and prospective clients. But that also meant transitioning existing investment management clients to a new fee structure, which was more expensive, obviously for a lot more value. And so we talked about how he structured those conversations. They actually got very little pushback and are now in a position where clients are referring them friends and family members that are looking for a comprehensive financial planning service. We also talked about his transition to taking over the firm as the founder is in his mid-60s and starting to think about retirement and how they structured the buyout succession plan to take care of all the parties. Are you the chief marketing officer of your RIA? Do you have a love-hate relationship with marketing? Do you understand the importance of marketing but have no idea where to start? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you need our free marketing funnel download. If you have a leak in your funnel, you could be spinning your wheels, missing opportunities, and gaining little traction. Use our free template to map your funnel and get a clear picture of your strategy. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/funnel to download the free template today. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/193. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Ryan. Hey, Ryan, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So just give listeners a bit of an overview of you and your practice. Where are you located? How many clients do you have? If you have a niche market, and then we'll dig into the details.
Yeah, so we're located, my firm's Fields Financial Services. We're located about an hour south of Pittsburgh right now. As a firm, as a whole, we actually have about 600 clients. I oversee about 245 of them right now. As far as a niche market, we kind of built our practice, I would say, more of the kind of manual labor market. So we have a lot of like traditional steel workers, coal miners, pipeliners, those types of clients right now.
Okay. So an hour south of Pittsburgh. So is there much there other than sort of mills and that sort of thing? I don't know that area very well.
Yeah, actually, it's quite beautiful. We're right on the base of the mountains here that kind of lead down into West Virginia. So it's a really nice area. But yeah, the area that we're located in, a lot of coal mines, a lot of steel mills, a lot of pipelines, those types of things going on.
Very cool. Yeah, so let's talk through sort of career path. How did you initially get into financial services?
Yeah, so it's kind of neat because my interest in financial services was piqued actually quite early. I actually fell in love with the business, I would say, when I was about 16 years old. When I was 16, I was actually working at a little restaurant in my hometown. And I met a guy who was actually the dishwasher. And, when you're young and you're naive, you don't think, when you see a dishwasher, you typically think, hey, this guy's maybe doesn't have a whole lot of money. But I would come into work and this guy would be sitting over there washing dishes and reading the Wall Street Journal. It was quite interesting to me. So I started talking to him and come to find out that he was 36 years old and he was retired because when he was very young, he invested a lot of money in a company called Berkshire Hathaway. He had actually retired, I think, at the age of 26, I believe. And the minute I heard that, my interest was piqued, and it was a really good relationship that we had. And he kind of told me all about how he kind of, washed dishes for, something to do more or less because he was kind of bored. But he would teach me stuff. He'd bring me in Wall Street journals and He's the guy that gave me I never even heard of Warren Buffett when I was 16 years old. So he was kind of like feeding me the biographies and, kind of showing me how to read stock tickers and things like that. And it just kind of exploded at that point, and it got so bad, my interest in the market, that when I was a senior in high school, I actually convinced my principal to let me leave school a half day, like only go to school for a couple of hours my senior year, just so that I can go home and watch CNBC all day. I'd lie to them and tell them I was going to work or something. I don't remember. We had to like do all this, but I literally would leave school at like 11 a.m., go home and like read annual reports and watch CNBC and like just completely nerd out on the stock market for the rest of the day. So that's kind of how my interest got piqued. And then I went off to college and went to school for finance. And after school, I knew I wanted to be a financial advisor, but I didn't really know like how to become one. They don't really teach you that in finance school. They teach you like they teach you about finance, but they don't teach you how to be a financial advisor. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's banking and that sort of thing.
Right. So when I got out of school, I kind of thought like you go to the Wells Fargos or you go to like the Mass Mutuals or, one of those like big firms that were constantly trying to recruit you. So I was kind of applying at some of those places and kind of made my way into the world of like bartending and waiting tables and restaurant management. And, kind of as a, I guess, stroke of luck, I met Randy Fields, who's our senior advisor here at this firm, and, got to talking to him, and he said, "Hey, you want to be a financial advisor? I have a, small financial planning firm, and I'd be happy to bring you on board as kind of like a little apprenticeship." I jumped on the opportunity. So I started 100% independent from day one.
Dude, I need to have your dishwasher friend, coworker on the show at some point to talk about what to do in retirement. It's the funny thing about the FIRE movement is that I don't think anyone ever thinks about on the other side of it. It's like, what do you do when you retire early? Is somebody who's very wealthy is washing dishes. That's how bored he is, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really interesting. Good for him that he created that for himself. So cool that you were able to, make this connection. How did Fields sort of sell this to you in terms of the industry? Because it sounds like you sort of knew what the industry was, but you weren't really sure. So I don't know. How did he ultimately convince you to come on board?
Okay. So it really wasn't the most attractive offer. I'll say that first and foremost.
From a financial standpoint or a job duty structural standpoint, or both?
From both. Yeah. So this was 2009. And at this point in time, he actually had another young guy in my shoes that was kind of sort of doing this sort of apprenticeship succession plan, type of journey. And he came on board like in 2008, kind of got whipsawed through the financial crisis right after the market bottom. I don't know if the events were connected, but this guy eventually decided to go back to law school, and he kind of like just bailed on the opportunity. So the spot opened up, and, I talked to Randy, and he said, "Hey, you sound like, you really have an interest in this. This is something that you really want to do." We got along perfectly from day one. And he was like, times are a little tough right now. A lot of firms were kind of making some cutbacks and just really tightening things up. So he said, I can offer you a little bit of money, but I promise you, I will put you on track to, get licensed and bring on your own clients and kind of like generate your own income. And then we'll keep kind of working you up from there. So it was kind of like somebody dangling an opportunity in front of my face. It was like, okay, you're going to start off a little low, but if you work hard enough, you'll eventually get to where you want to be. So I really like that, actually.
Yeah. So that, that could be seen as attractive. It could also be seen as taking advantage of a young person. I will say in 2009, no one was hiring. And so sometimes those are the only offers that you could find. How long did it take you to get to sort of a comfortable compensation? I mean, we all want to make more money, right? But how long did it take you to get to where you felt comfortable and that you were making enough money to put a roof over your head and everything was going to be fine?
Yeah, I would say it took me about a year or so just to kind of get all the licenses and things in place. So my first year, I was kind of more on the administrative side of things. And I think I was actually kind of part-time at that point. So once I got licensed and started actually going out there and getting clients, I would say it probably took a good 2 to 3 years. I would say probably after year three was when I really kind of felt like, okay, I can do this. Like I'm in a good place.
Yeah, I think that lines up with what we've shared in our benchmarking surveys of our members as they have been growing their practices. Year one sucks. Year two kind of sucks. And then year three, you're like, oh, this is actually really nice. It's something about, year three, it just takes time for the people who saw you initially launch to find out if you're there, if you're going to cut it, if you're going to make it, and just to build the credibility and trust. And for you, you had to go get licensed and all of that. So, obviously the licenses for listeners who are unaware, depending on which route you go, if you go pure RIA, you generally only need the Series 65. But if you do end up working, even if you're not necessarily selling products, if you are attached to a broker dealer, there are certain licenses that you have to get. So which licenses did you have to get there in your first year?
Yeah. So I started with the Series 7, and then I believe I had to get the Series 63 after that, which looking back, I wish I would have just jumped to the Series 66, but I got the 7, the 63, and then, the state insurance licenses right after that.
So it took you a year, got through all those exams, because the Series 7, I know it's a little different, but it's basically I've heard some people say it's equivalent to CFP. I've heard some say that it's not quite as bad. Well, I guess you have both, right? So how do you compare the two?
The CFP is definitely it's a beast all of its own. I couldn't even put it in the same ballpark. But the hold up for me on the Series 7 was I was doing a lot of administrative work, so I had a lot of like tasks that I had to get done. So I couldn't focus like all of my attention on studying. I had to kind of do a little bit here, a little bit there, so that I can keep making sure client accounts are getting opened and serviced, and everything that I needed to do to earn my paycheck anyway.
Okay, fair enough. All right, well, we won't say easier. We'll just say the CFP is more comprehensive and takes a lot more study time. So yeah, I've heard it said both ways. So you're doing a lot of administrative work. You get licensed, and then you start to hit the ground running. How do you initially? It sounds like it was sort of your revenue was going to go up based on your efforts and the deals that you're bringing in, the clients you're bringing in. So how do you go about getting that first wave of clients when you're brand new to the industry?
Okay, so I had a couple of advantages. First is I had a wonderful mentor. Randy was not just my boss, but he was really like a great mentor, and he really wanted to see me succeed. So we struck a deal kind of early on where he said, okay, I have some like smaller accounts that not that he wasn't necessarily servicing them. He just didn't have the time to service them as well as he wanted to. So he was really kind of let me kind of run loose on those clients, if you will, for lack of better terms. So I was able to kind of go through the kind of bottom end of the book of business, and get in front of clients, do some reviews, kind of, get my feet wet in that way. But the other advantage I had was that while I was, searching for a path, if you will, I did a lot of bartending and waiting tables and stuff here kind of locally in the community, which if anybody's ever done those professions or those side hustles before, you meet everybody in that business. So I had a really good contact list, and I just kind of went down through that contact list and tried to drum up as much business as I could.
So how did it go? I mean, how were those? I mean, you said it took to year 3, but that's pretty typical. How were those first couple of years?
Well, okay. So the most difficult part was we got to think this was like 2010, 2011, 2012. So we're kind of just coming out of the financial crisis. So there was a lot of people who were, still a little bit weary about the markets and in general, everything else that was going on. So that was a little bit difficult to kind of get over that hurdle. But for the most part, it was just kind of a slow and steady grind. You just worked hard and, kind of prayed a good bit and just hoped that things would turn out the way you wanted them to. But no, it was just kind of a slow and steady grind.
So how long have you been there now? So you started in 2009, sounds like licensed by 10. So it's been about 8-9 years that you've been ramping up.
Yeah. I'm actually getting ready to celebrate my 10th year with the firm. Yeah, in August. So it's going to be great.
So what is your role now? So what's the structure of the firm? Some listeners aren't all that familiar with the way broker-dealers interact with independent firms, because you said earlier independent, which means different things to different people. So help me out with the structure of the firm and the role that you're playing there.
Yeah. So our firm, we are with a broker-dealer, but they do kind of let us kind of operate kind of completely independent. We use our own name here in the community. We can use our own structure and titles and things like that. So our firm right now, we have 3 advisors and we have 1 assistant. I kind of started in that sort of assistant role, kind of building some clients. And then as I got busier and I kind of made my way kind of full time into like an advisor role, we hired an assistant to kind of come up and take those administrative duties off of us. But more recently now, Randy being the senior advisor he's 60 years old. He's not necessarily on the verge of retirement, but he's starting to think in that direction, if you will. So succession planning is starting to get thrown around a lot. So what we've done is we've kind of taken a team-based approach, he and I. So I kind of have my clients and he has his clients, and we've almost kind of like brought the 2 books together, if you will. And we sit in on all client appointments together, which has created a really cool dynamic because I'm working on the client accounts. He's working on the client accounts. He's kind of the old guy that has all the experience, and I'm kind of the young and, on the verge of technology and all that good stuff. So it kind of brings a cool dynamic to the client relationship. But yeah, he and I are more or less a team at this point.
So how many other team members do you have, or is it just the 2 of you?
It's the 2 of us, and then we have 1 other advisor who kind of operates, independently on his own. So the idea is eventually for Randy to phase out and, for me to kind of, take the lead from there.
Okay. So you are you have 2 advisors sitting in on 600 clients. So what's the breakdown of those clients? How often are you meeting with them? Once a year, twice a year, maybe once every couple of years?
Yeah. So we try to hit every client at least once a year. Doesn't always work out that way. For our clients that we have in more of an advisory role, we absolutely see them at least once a year. For our kind of investment management only clients, it's more or less we kind of let the client kind of dictate how often they want to see us. So for some clients, it's once a year. Some clients, they kind of only want to see us, when they need us or whatever, but it's kind of all over the board. But advisory clients definitely always get 1 appointment per year.
Okay. Are they able to meet with you more often than that? Or is that a limit, or that's just how many times you're reaching out to proactively schedule, but they can schedule if they need to?
Yeah, that's the minimum. At least once. For the most part, everybody is at least on kind of a semi-annual routine with us. So we don't really have like a cap on how much they can meet with us. But for the most part, most of our clients are about semi-annual. Some we see kind of quarterly, but it's at least a once a year meeting schedule.
So you've mentioned your advisory side of the business and then investment management. So if I'm a new client coming in today, what is the service model and fee structure that you have for those clients?
Yeah. So for new clients, what we tell them is we made the shift kind of more from an investment management firm to a comprehensive financial planning firm. We started that shift maybe about 4 years ago. So for our new clients, we tell them we set the expectation kind of right off the bat that, hey, we're comprehensive financial planners. Here's what we offer to you. We give them all clients, like I said, when they come in the room, I should say, we sit down with them and we kind of more or less go deep, pick them apart, just like a, traditional financial planning relationship, analyzing cash flow and insurance. And, you get the idea there. But what we do is we run them through that to kind of answer the question.
So it sounds like you're really the investment management clients are sort of a holdover from an old service model. So talk to me about when you first came into the firm, what was the service model that was being used? And then we'll talk about how that's evolved over time.
Yeah. So when I first came into the firm, we were more or less kind of your traditional A-share mutual fund shop, more kind of investment management focused. I would say that was primarily because that was more or less what our clients needed from us at that point. when we started the firm and as the firm kind of grew up, our clients were kind of in that accumulation phase of their financial lives. So needs for like financial planning were more or less kind of tailored around their investment management needs. However, as we've kind of grown up a little bit more and gotten a few years past that, I'd say our clients' needs have gotten a little bit more sophisticated, as our average client went from, 45, 50 years old to now like, 55, 60. The conversation has shifted from, hey, how are my mutual funds doing to, hey, when should I take Social Security? Okay. So when I first came on board, we were more or less, like I said, kind of an A-share mutual fund shop, clients coming in, doing rollovers, things like that, opening accounts. We would kind of work with them to, build a portfolio based on their risk tolerance and such and their investment objectives. And then we would, meet with them regularly to kind of review the investments, maybe do some kind of like one-off financial planning, if they had some insurance needs, things like that. Wasn't really like a formal process is what I would say. And now it's kind of more of a formalized structure. Client comes in the door, we do utilize e-money. So we kind of take them through the fact finders. We go deep through their whole financial life, right from the start. We ask them for their net worth statements and, things like that. And we kind of pull them apart, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it sounds like that has evolved, sort of with the clients that are coming in and also bringing you on and probably some young energy and looking forward to sort of the direction the industry's headed and the work that y'all wanted to be doing. How much of that do you feel like was just sort of, natural evolution of clients were starting to ask more questions, so you started offering more services versus really driving that from the company level? Because I feel like that's a pretty big shift to make over 10 years to go from sort of an A-share mutual fund shop to everyone that comes in the door is a comprehensive financial planning client.
Yeah. So I would say a large chunk of it, I would say, is natural, just kind of evolution of the clients, their needs just getting a little bit more sophisticated. And one thing that we have noticed is as we've been kind of making that shift into more kind of a comprehensive financial planning relationship with clients, that the referrals that are kind of coming in from our clients are more sophisticated cases as well. So, because we're doing more sophisticated work, we're almost kind of attracting more sophisticated work. So that kind of lower level kind of investment management only stuff really isn't even coming in the door anymore. So yeah.
So has your marketing changed along with that, or do you feel like that's primarily driven by your existing client referrals?
Yeah, I'd say that's more or less driven by the existing client referrals. I don't think we've really made too many changes as far as, our marketing. It's just kind of been driven by the clients.
So how did Randy take this transition? I apologize for making you speak for him, but I mean, the advisors that have been running successful businesses, many times they know the writings on the wall for where things are going, or maybe they don't. They just don't care. But even if they do see the writing on the wall, hey, the industry's headed that direction, like, I'm making good money. Why would I change? Like, how do you get someone who, I guess when you started was around 55 years old, now 65? How do you get him on board with this concept of, hey, we need to be looking at doing more sophisticated in financial planning? Quite honestly, that the low level investment management work is really what's being commoditized and is becoming harder to build businesses on. So how do you get buy-in from an older advisor that doesn't have to care if he doesn't want to?
Yeah, it was actually kind of shocking how easy of a transition it was. When we first started, now us being, in Royal Alliance and being in kind of that BD model, some of the conversation really started as the Department of Labor rule, the fiduciary rule was coming down, not to call out the BD or anything like that, but let's just say there were a lot of conversations in the broker-dealer world, like, hey, things are moving in a fee-based financial planning manner, so you should really start taking a look in that direction. Not to, put anybody on the spot or anything like that, but those were a lot of the conversations that we were hearing. And I really kind of started, I kind of have an eye for technology. It's kind of a love of mine. So, I would, notice things like Money Guide Pro and eMoney. We weren't utilizing those types of programs. And I would, take test drives of them and I'd show Randy and I'd say, hey, look, we can actually increase our service to our clients. Look at all this stuff that we can do. Like we're doing this stuff right now. It's kind of like one-off here and there kind of things, legal pads and spreadsheets and all that. It's kind of like a loose process that we have. And I said, here, we can actually formalize this into a nice formal process for our clients. We can do really, really good work for our clients. And, look at our clients. I mean, just take a look at the conversations that we're starting to have now. They're shifting now from clients coming in and saying, hey, how are my investments, to, clients are starting to ask us, when should we take Social Security? Or, I have a child who has special needs and I'm worried about leaving the money. Like the conversations were becoming more and more complex. And I'm like, look, we can model stuff up in here and we can really show, do more in-depth work with a nice formalized system like this. And that was actually a rather easy sell, to be honest with you. It was kind of harping on him a little bit, from time to time, but eventually he kind of came on board once he saw really the vast amount, the how we can do better work for our clients in a more kind of organized process, if you will.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it doesn't sound like there was like this, single event, or, it wasn't even necessarily your hire, coming on and it's like, okay, let's change the nature of the firm. It was much more gradual than that. And a lot of pieces sort of happening all at once that ultimately compounded into that being a successful transition.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest strengths that we have kind of as a firm is that we're really in tune with our clients. Even though we have a lot of clients, I feel like we really do a good job of kind of growing and evolving with them. So, as the client needs are changing, we are noticing those things with our firm, and we're able to kind of guide the firm to our client needs. So, that kind of showing him and him being in tune with the clients, it was this kind of sort of a natural shift, if you will.
So what about the clients? Of the clients that you had, we'll say, 10 years ago, and then this transition now is complete for the most part, what percentage would you say of those clients that were investment only have turned into more comprehensive financial planning clients? And have they, or is it majority just like new clients are on this new model?
Yeah. So of our existing clients, I would say about 50% of those guys are now over in the comprehensive financial planning model, and all the new clients that come in the door are making their way, in that direction. So when we first started the transition, we didn't want to just transition a client from investment management to comprehensive financial planning just because, some higher up says that's the way we should be doing it, right? That wouldn't be in the best interest of the client. So what we really did was we kind of started more or less kind of at the top of the client list, and we kind of peeled through each client that we thought would benefit from a higher level of service, right? Like transitioning them from more or less just focusing on their investments to, okay, now let's kind of dig deep, now that you're whatever closer to retirement or what have you, and kind of move you to a heightened level of service.
Did the fees change? So, because you mentioned earlier, more A shares, mutual funds, and now it's more of I'm assuming an AUM based fee. I don't guess you've said that yet, but how did the fees, or have the fees changed as part of that heightened service model for those existing clients?
Yeah. So we are on an AUM fee. Right now, our fee structure is we have kind of a loose minimum. We don't really enforce it too heavily, but every now and again, we bring a client on kind of under 100,000. That level, we're charging 1.2% annually. Anything from 100 to 250, we're charging 1.1. 250 to 500 is 1%. 500 to a million, 0.9, and then anything over $1 million, we're charging 0.8% on that.
So that is a rate, a increase in terms of overall fee to clients that were maybe on A shares, just because just the way the fees are structured. So how did you have that conversation with clients? Because this is something I'm really interested in understanding, because moving a client who came to you for one service into a totally different service model that is more expensive and more comprehensive is a tough sell. So how did those conversations go with the actual clients of moving them onto this new service model that was an increase in fees for them?
Yeah, so I'm actually glad you asked that question, because when we first started this transition, that was the thing that I worried most about, was having that conversation. I can remember, sitting in Randy's office before the meetings and saying, hey, I'm worried that, clients aren't going to want to do this. They're going to be, put off by the fee. I was so worried about the fee. And really, when I sat down with the clients, and I think the secret to it is really showing them what they're getting for the fee. I'm kind of a big fan of the Warren Buffett quote, price is what you pay, value is what you receive. So what we would do is we would sit down with the clients and we would show them. So I actually spent some time prior to the transition. I said, I'm going to write out every single service that we're going to offer to the clients. So I kind of made like a little, if you will, like a checklist. And I said, okay, you're going to get this many meetings per year, which, it's at least one annual meeting, or, you can go semi-annual if you would prefer. So your fee is going to include this many meetings and, unlimited email support, and kind of showed them, how heightened fee is more contact with us. I also just kind of went through each individual service that we were going to offer, cash flow analysis, retirement planning, investment management, kind of showing them, hey, investment management was the primary focus for you before, but now it's a kind of a piece of the focus, along with, insurance planning and retirement planning and all these other kind of services all wrapped into one bundle. Then what I typically do is I show them e-money. I really would utilize the sample clients in e-money, and I would go in there and show them how we can project their financial futures, and go in there and, model different things up, show them their probabilities of success, things like that. Clients really love that. So they could actually see on paper all the services that they were going to get. And then I can kind of interactively show them how we were going to work together in the future and how that was going to benefit them. And at that point, they could kind of see, okay, yeah, I'm going to pay a little bit more money for this, but I'm really going to get a heightened level of service. And for a guy who is 62 years old, 63 years old, and kind of on the verge of retirement, worried about, does he have enough to last him, for the rest of his life? And for me to kind of show them how I can model that up in, software like e-money, and really kind of project his financial future. I mean, that right there is almost kind of invaluable to them. So it was actually a rather easy sell. We didn't have any clients kick back, and then pretty much everybody was on board with it.
So it's really interesting about the sample client e-money. Is that a feature that e-money provides all of its users, or is that a sample client that you've built on your end?
No, it's a feature they offer. So they actually have, I think it's like 5 or 6 different sample clients. So I would kind of pick the one that was kind of similar to their situation. Because obviously I couldn't use like a, client that's already on the books. You know what I mean? Couldn't do that. But yeah, I would just kind of go in there and show them like, hey, here's a sample of what we offer. We go through this program, we put all of this data in here, and then we run all these different projections and models, and it picks up all this stuff. And clients just loved it. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of what we did was we put a big screen TV in our conference room, because we meet all of our clients in our conference room. And we actually project, the e-money software from my laptop onto the TV. We kind of did that more or less so clients could see better what we were working on. We can kind of interactively work together with stuff. And it's turned into now, after client appointments, I'll get like a referral from a client, and the guy will come in and he'll say, hey, I'm getting ready to retire. Can we sit down and do that thing on the TV that you did with so-and-so? So it's kind of become like I don't know, like a thing that we're kind of known for right now.
So looking at your sort of client base over time, how has that evolved in terms of, you were mentioning earlier that you work with a lot of clients in the sort of manual labor fields. Like, are you seeing a change there along with the service model and sort of the types of clients that you're really working with?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing about Pittsburgh, it's rapidly evolving, which is great. But historically, Pittsburgh's been known for the steel mills, the coal mines, the pipeliners. Those are our bread and butter clients. Those are the guys that we really built this practice with. However, those types of jobs really aren't as prevalent today as they were 20, 30 years ago. So, one of the trends that we're noticing is that we're meeting with these clients who are, 62, 63 years old, kind of coming out of the steel mills. And they're asking us if we could meet with their kids, and we're noticing that a lot of the kind of the next generation clients, as we call them, are coming in fields typically related to healthcare, which if you look at where the jobs are now in Pittsburgh, that makes a lot of sense because our largest employers are hospitals now. And UPMC, which is the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, is the largest employer in Pittsburgh right now, I believe. And the second biggest is Allegheny Health Network. So Pittsburgh's kind of shifted more from like an energy focus to kind of on the cutting edge of healthcare. So we're getting a lot of clients kind of coming out of those professions. And a lot of their parents are even telling them, hey, like, I built a career in the steel mills, but more than likely you're not going to be able to. So, you should look at the careers that are fruitful now, which are things like, physical therapy and different things like that are really kind of, prevalent here in Pittsburgh now. So yeah, our clients are shifting kind of from that sort of bread and butter manual labor type of job to kind of more of a more sophisticated healthcare focus. And with that, we have, changed up a little bit of our service model. We're doing a lot of like student loan planning, especially with the younger clients, which is something that we've never done before, but we're really kind of, working with these clients and, helping them with, building a plan to, pay off their student loans or forgiveness or PSLF, whatever the case might be for them.
So yeah, it's really interesting how that has evolved. And I imagine, again, just the type of planning you're doing for someone who's been in a steel mill their whole life versus, someone coming out of school and going into physical therapy with student loans, obviously night and day difference in terms of that service model. So it sounds like student loans, is that an area of expertise that you've developed or maybe that third advisor in the firm?
No, that's an area that I developed. Me being the younger guy, I typically work with the younger clients when they come in the door. So younger clients come in. We were really doing a lot of like, I don't want to say like free work, but it was more or less kind of like, for more of our kind of bread and butter clients that have been with us a long time. They'll come in and say, hey, my son or my daughter just graduated college. Would you sit down and work with them for a little bit? And we'd bring them in and we'd kind of, sit down with them and, ask them where they were kind of financially and things like that. And we didn't want to be the guys. I didn't want to be the guy who was like, hey, put $50 a month into a Roth IRA and just kind of like send them out the door. So I really wanted to go deep with them. So I kind of built like a few years ago, I did this, but I made kind of a sort of like a do-it-yourself financial plan workbook that I would hand them. And I'd kind of run them through it real quick and, kind of show them. Because back then, everything we were really fully being paid on assets. So the clients didn't have any assets. So there was really no way for me to get paid. It was just kind of like here's a workbook that will, show you how to, do some budgeting and things like that. And then I'd kind of ask them, things that were bothering them financially. And almost every single one of these young people that were coming in were like, what do I do with my student loans? Right? Like they didn't have any other major financial concern other than like, hey, I have $275,000 in student loans and it keeps me up at night. What do I do? Right. So it really, when I had enough of those conversations, I said, okay, I really need to dig into this and learn more about this. So I kind of went out there and kind of built that education, and kind of now I offer that kind of as a additional service. So on top of our AUM fee, we actually do a separate kind of one-shot student loan plan. We charge $500 for that right now. And it's worked out really well because a lot of our like sort of bread and butter clients can say, hey, would you work with my son? And then I can say, yeah, for $500, I'll build him a student loan plan or whatever. And, I can kind of start the relationship going with them.
So where did you get the education? Did you go through a program, or did you go get, sort of build out the education yourself?
Yeah, so I sort of did a little bit of both, just a lot of kind of reading articles, things like that. I did do Heather Jarvis's course. I don't know if I'm allowed to drop her name or not.
Well, we're going to have her on the podcast in another couple of weeks again, so that'll give us a little prequel for that. So you went through her program as well?
Yeah. I needed some credits, some CE credits for my CFP, and I felt, hey, want to learn this stuff anyway, so I may as well just take her class, and it was wonderful. It literally takes you, from knowing nothing to practically being a qualified professional. So it was great.
And so you said you charge $500 for that. So it sounds like that's actually a standalone service for get your student loans analyzed. Are you finding that clients that go through that process are then electing into a more ongoing relationship, or is that more the hope and haven't seen that happen yet?
Yeah. So we are hopefully going to, of course, us being in a broker dealer, we can't necessarily charge how we want to charge. We have to charge how we're allowed to charge. And right now we don't have the capability to do a monthly kind of like, small monthly amount or whatever. But that is hopefully going to be released shortly. I know they keep saying it's coming, but they haven't actually formally announced it yet. But the idea is for right now, it's kind of a one-shot $500 deal. A lot of these clients, once they have a student loan plan in place, they want to continue working with me in some capacity. It's hard for me to do that now because there's still no assets. I'm trying to, we're really kind of starting to get creative on how we can do this. We're kind of asking the broker dealer, hey, can you guys we have a lot of interest in this. We want to keep these clients around. We don't have any assets to pay us. We would love to charge them whatever, a few $100 a month or whatever the case might be, to kind of cover the fee and compensate us for, doing cash flow analysis and different things like that, some financial planning for them. So we're hoping that by the end of the year, we have that all worked out. For right now, I just kind of have a lot of clients that are kind of coming through the kind of one-shot deal. And it's basically like, we'll start working together as soon as I can.
Makes sense. And this is something for folks that are out there who have always been on the RIA side, like myself. It's mind-boggling to think that a service model, you can't just like go turn it on. For anyone who's been on the broker-dealer side, you understand. So if hopefully get them on advice pay, that's what our enterprise version was built for. I'm learning more and more about the number of advisors that are out there like your firm that are either doing it for free because they do want to engage that relationship, but they just don't have a way to get paid, or they're like, I have all these people I could help if I could just implement the service model. So it's really cool to see. I think many people in financial services would be surprised at how many advisors out there on both sides of the broker dealer and RIA fence are really providing these types of services or trying to provide these services, which is cool to see.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what's funny is, the clients want it. The clients are like, I'll say, hey, down the road here, I'm going to offer a service for, a few $100s a month. And you're going to be able to kind of get this suite of comprehensive financial planning services along with it. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Please let me know whenever that becomes available. It's like, they're all for it. I can do it right now. Like I can charge them. I think they have an option where we can bill them quarterly. And it's like, literally a paper bill gets mailed to them. They write a check and send it back. And
pretty standard. That's what we're finding for the broker dealer check acceptance process. So
right. And like millennial clients are like, I don't even have a checkbook, man. Like that's not going to work. Just call me whenever you can automatically debit my checking account or whatever the case might be. So we don't really want to work for free, but we kind of want to keep the clients nearby. So, I'm trying to like keep them on an email list or something like that and reconnect with them as soon as I can.
So what is the plan with your Randy, correct? The advisor who started this firm, he's approaching or has hit retirement age. He's got a pretty big book of clients that, that need to transition. Is there already a set transition succession process? Is that something y'all are still working on? Sort of what's the plan going forward with the firm?
No, I mean, the plan was always to put a succession plan in place from the time I came on in the front door, which is why I stuck around for 10 years, especially starting at, kind of a meager salary, if you will. But more recently, Randy has had a few, I guess you can say, some minor medical procedures done. And before he went in for those procedures, he thought it was a good idea if we get the succession plan down on paper. So we actually formally drew that up, I think, back in October with the idea, if something would have happened to him or whatever, it would kind of kick into place. But we have a plan in place. We just don't necessarily have a date on it. So he's thinking in that direction. He just doesn't know exactly when that day is going to come whenever he does step aside and I kind of buy the practice from him. But it is kind of written in stone that, I am eventually going to take over at some point.
Did you go through that process with a lawyer or a firm, or did y'all just do it sort of on your own?
No, it was the broker dealer. Royal Alliance actually had a lot of good resources in the back office. We actually have a department who kind of specializes in that. So we reached out to them and they had some like templates in place that we kind of followed. Kind of about, working out the numbers, what kind of, buy a business, you buy a practice based on the multiple of last year's earnings, So it was kind of more or less finding numbers that worked for the two of us. And we did that and kind of followed their model. And it was almost kind of like a plug and play type of system. And we came to an agreement that we both liked.
So are you able to share any of the details around, just, you don't have to share necessarily all the numbers, but like structurally, is it sort of a buyout based on revenue, or like how are you going to be able to afford to buy this business, assuming you don't just have sort of, big pot of money sitting there waiting to buy the practice?
Yeah, definitely don't have a big pile of money waiting there to buy the practice, although I'm sure he wouldn't object to that.
If only, right?
Right. No, it was actually a really good deal. The way we are structuring it is it's going to be based on whatever year it actually happens. So let's just say it happens in 5 years. He would be 65 at that point. We basically look back at the previous 2 years' revenue. And we look at the previous 2 years' revenue, and that becomes the quote unquote selling price of the firm. And we are dividing that into 60 installment payments looking forward. So I would basically take over the practice at that point, run the practice, and pay him in monthly installments over the course of 60 months based on that number that we calculated the day the succession plan came into place. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And then what is your plan with the firm? I mean, do you have a vision for staying, just you and this one other advisor? Do you want to grow it? Like, what do you hoping to accomplish with the firm?
Yeah. So one of the things that our clients love about our firm is that we have kind of that sort of small town feel. So we do still have some clients. We're trying to train them otherwise, but we do have some clients who just kind of walk in and talk to us. Clients really appreciate the fact that we're kind of like right down the street. We're the guys who don't wear the, fancy suits. We more or less kind of come in, dress shirts and a pair of slacks, and we don't drive fancy cars. Like, the clients really like the ability to just kind of walk in and talk to us or get an appointment within a couple of days, that sort of thing. So I wanted it's going to be very interesting how we continue to grow and maintain that at the same time. But that is basically my goal. So I think very shortly here, we're supposed to be bringing on third advisor, kind of a younger version of me to kind of come up the ranks, and I'm kind of tapped out more or less at the number of clients that I can handle at this point. And we would like, somebody to kind of come behind me and sort of work with a lot of the clients that maybe we're not servicing the way that we want to. And then we are talking about also bringing on a paraplanner here pretty shortly. That might be the same person. We don't know. The third advisor might end up being the paraplanner too. We haven't really figured that one out. And then also potentially bringing on somebody to kind of be more of kind of a director of investments, somebody who's kind of just focused more or less in the construction and maintenance of our portfolios that we build kind of here in-house. So It's going to be kind of I definitely want to grow the firm, but I also want to keep kind of that small town feel to it. So I could definitely see us having a few more advisors on the team here, but it's just really important to me that we kind of, keep what we have here kind of in place. So it's just going to be really, really interesting to see us grow.
Makes sense. So what are the big projects that you're looking at, over the next, let's say 12, 24 months? Obviously hiring and ramping up other advisors is going to be a big deal, possibly triggering a succession plan. Anything else in the works that might be interesting to hear about?
Yeah. So we are kind of broadening our marketing efforts, going more into the digital world. So we just released a blog a few months ago that we're kind of gearing towards healthcare professionals. And that's probably going to be more or less the big focus, at least on my end anyway, for the next 24 months, is really kind of building up the blog, potentially releasing a podcast attached to it. Since the firm is kind of moving in that direction of us, we're bringing on more and more healthcare professionals. We think this would be a good way to kind of introduce, put us in front of more potential clients, if you will, through the blog here. So that on my end is going to be the big focus, potentially a podcast, and then also a couple hires.
All right. Got your plate full for sure. As we're coming to a close here, ask you the final question. So if you look back over your career as an advisor, whether it be, getting into being an advisor for the first time, 10 years ago, or sort of along the way, if there's one piece of advice that you wish you could go back and give your younger self, that one thing that you've learned that you wish you had known then, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned more recently that I didn't know whenever I first got started, or I wasn't really thinking about when I first got started, is let your clients guide your practice. And what I mean by that is when I was kind of first coming up, I was so concerned about what the competition was doing. It was like, oh, well, these guys down the street are, advertising this way, or their fee schedule is this and my fee schedule is this. That doesn't really matter. We're not in a competitive business, even though we think we are sometimes. We're in a relationship business. And clients do business with us because they like us and they find value in what we provide to them. And I think that's the most important thing that advisors need to tell themselves. So, when you're setting your fee schedule, set your fee schedule based on the value that you're bringing to your clients. Find that happy number that, your clients are okay with paying, that fairly compensates you and brings value to them. When you're doing your marketing efforts and things like that, base your marketing off the target client that you're looking to work with, not the one your guy down the street's working, the competitor down the street's looking to work with. Don't worry about what your competitors are doing. Just focus on your business and your clients, and it will grow and it will succeed.
Love it. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share about your career path and what you've been working on. Always exciting stuff. And I appreciate all the time and expertise.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Are you the chief marketing officer of your RIA? Do you have a love-hate relationship with marketing? Do you understand the importance of marketing but have no idea where to start? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you need our free marketing funnel download. If you have a leak in your funnel, you could be spinning your wheels, missing opportunities, and gaining little traction. Use our free template to map your funnel and get a clear picture of your strategy. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/funnel to download the free template today. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.